minutes.
Including that tread thing.
All right.
Carol doesn't work at all.
No.
And so they have to do it, they have to do it where they don't like uncover the whole thing. Yeah.
What a pain that is.
All right, we've got 7 o'clock here on the dial, so we will call the regular November Northport Village Council meeting to order. And let the roll call show that trustees, except for Trustee Cook, are in attendance. And no treasurer tonight.
Cook is in attendance by Zoom. Yeah, I want to know.
Used by Zoom. Let's see, approval of the council meeting minutes, October 5th, 2023. Those are in our packet for viewing. Did anybody have any additions or corrections?
Yeah, I have a few spelling things which are probably very similar to yours, which I can give you. But one thing that I wanted to see if you could add is on page 4, the wage trim amendment to agreement. I wondered if you could add in something like Trustee Cavendish voiced frustration over the increase and hopes that we can improve in our contract standards in the future or something like that, just because I did say that and I am frustrated. So, so I just would like to have it there so that it's not just looking like we approved it with no discussion.
I can do that.
That was it.
Yeah.
So the only substantive thing I found was also on page 4 under the leave and uncaged follow-up, and the C is capitalized in uncaged a couple of places. But the substantive thing is that the lieutenant's name was Dwayne Wright, 2 words. And Joni's got
I
that.
heard it as Wainwright. So.
It sounds like Wainwright. Well, I move that we approve the minutes of the October 5th meeting with the corrections noted.
Second.
All right, moved by Susan, supported by Lauren to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Approval of the agenda. Any amendments or additions? Anyone? No. Okay, so all in favor of approving the agenda as is, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is set. That brings us to our first public comment period. None here in the attendance in the hall, so if anybody on Zoom would like to, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I would recognize you for public comment. Okay, hearing no takers, we'll move on to correspondence. Any correspondence?
I did submit one into the packet for tonight from Patty Knox, just outlining the request for the 2024 funding, and I have the receipts for the 2023 funding of the visitor center, and so I assume this will be handed off to finance for consideration.
Historically, what we've done.
Okay, staff reports, starting with the clerk.
So you have my report. The clerk, or I'm sorry, the treasurer, or deputy clerk and treasurer, is been out sick this week. So the official report that we normally do was not submitted with our signatures, but when she's back in the office, we will get that and get it to everyone. But I did complete the list here of bills that were paid during the month. And we'll get our official report to you. And I did submit a report in writing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but this just covers that the Act 51 report was completed. You have the budget amendments tonight. There's some details on our truck and the payment to Boyne Country, or I'm sorry, let's say Boyne Country, Boyne Truck and Trailer. They're the ones that are completing the outfitting of our plow dump truck. And then you also have some information there on the capital improvement fund and the certificates of deposit, and of course the completion of the quarterly reports, which just is nice to know that does happen on a consistent basis. Are there any questions?
No, there's none. Thank you, Joni. Treasurer deputy clerk is out. She said, yeah, she's not here. She's not being.
She's not here
informed.
tonight,
Okay.
yeah.
But she did submit a written
Okay,
report.
her normal.
I guess I just note that we did receive our final reimbursement from the county. And she captured what that breakdown was for you in her report with $33,417.18 in delinquent taxes. She highlighted the delinquent water that was reimbursed from the county and a water assessment there for you. And that we did send out the tree lighting donation letters to businesses. And if anyone would like to make a donation, we have copies here in the office, and I can get you a form if you'd like to. But we've received the $1,625. That's just through the month of October, plus the $1,000 matching funds. So
I know you've told me this before, but I've forgotten. How much do we need for that?
So it typically, the breakdown is $5,500 to get the lights up and take them down. That's for the rental of the equipment also. And then it's $1,500 for the carriage. And we typically spend about $1,000 on the lights. Okay. And that is what has been spent so far. That's what's gonna be
Or will
scheduled.
be, yeah,
Mhm.
because the tree doesn't get paid until it's done.
Yeah, and I've already been talking to some support for the tree lighting event. You know, there's always hot chocolate that goes directly to the sales go towards the tree lighting. And then there's a lot of cookies that will be donated this year and things like that. So last year raised $700 amongst
Oh, wow.
others donations, but so yeah,
Yeah, when people are standing there, they want you can make a lot.
hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Coffee didn't go over very well.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Mhm.
Okay, next up, DPW.
Yes, hope everybody has my report in your packet. Just a couple side notes on that report. Just spoke yesterday with our engineer from Klein and Newhoff concerning the 4th Street drainage issue. And at this point, it's still up for review with Eagle. So we're no any more than that. And also have been in contact with the Watershed Council, Sarah Ewing from Watershed Council. They selected a contractor for the rain garden project at the corner of Main Street and Wakasu. So we're hope to have a meeting with the design engineer, which is the Drummond Carpenter firm, and the contractor, NCS, hopefully by the end of the month. So, and we'll get down to the particulars. Also been in contact with MDOT. They're going to participate because we're going to cross right-of-ways here a little bit. So that's one thing additional to the report I have.
Chris, does Josh know when he'll get his
Results.
test results?
It's usually 45 to 60 days. They leave you on pins and needles, which is crazy. Yeah. But I feels pretty good about it. He's studying very hard for that. So hopefully we're good outcome. Any questions?
And that would give us 3 water operators?
Two.
Oh.
Yeah, I did not make it. I just did that 2 points.
All right, thanks, Chris. Next up, we have Marina. I don't think Phil's in attendance there. No, he's
He's on the road.
yeah, he's on the road. Okay, he did submit a report there, fairly benign time of year, except for his little incident, it looked like. Watch your step.
It wasn't little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's big stuff.
Kind of downplayed it. Okay. And then next up, we have our village manager, zoning administrator.
I prepared a written report, and a lot of that, obviously, just a few things I want to amplify and emphasize. On the administrative assistant, as I said, there's been a couple applications, one local that I just found out about today, in fact. I'm also using a dictation program that I purchased with my own funds, so I don't need to have any administrative support for that, so that's an assistance there. iPads, we've got them in stock. We're trying to get them through it's called a managed ID, so they're managed and the software is distributed centrally. So we expect to have those up and running for the next meeting.
Jim, you may need to speak up a little bit just because you're quite a ways from, and then people, oh, Hugh says he can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll try to speak up a little bit more. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We do need to set a date for the council retreat that we've been talking about. It looks like November 28th, 29th, and 30th are the best dates. I know some of you have indicated your availability. Please, if you can, get that into Joni so we can select that date. The item about health insurance issues that I wanted to let you know what was going on with that. The reason that's on my list, it turns out for those of us that are 65 or older, it's a very significant expense for the village to place us on we have a small non-group policy that we purchased for employees, and it's upwards of, it's about $1,800 a month if it were both my wife and I on that plan. It turns out there's a much cheaper alternative that would be available through a Medicare gap plan. I had it scoped out by an insurance agent, and it would be closer to $800 total, maybe half the cost. The kicker is that to do that, would have to be it would have to be directly reimbursed, which would be an additional compensation, taxable compensation to me. We're also, I'm looking into the possibility of setting up a health. We already have the HSA, but it should be an HSR, Health Reimbursement Account, HRA rather, Health Reimbursement Account. There would be somewhat of a fee involved, but it would permit us to make those reimbursements on a tax-favored, non-tax basis. So you might be seeing or hearing more about that. As far as projects go, at the Finance Committee meeting, I was asked, what have I been doing the last 6 weeks? And I actually sat down to chart it all out. It was a lot more than I even remember. But what the kayak launch proposal is about, we're in the very early stages of looking at possibly creating a kayak launching stand that could be used at, more than likely, at Hazard Park. It can also be adaptable for handicap use, and there are some grants available for that because of certainly just for recreational use, but also handicap advantaged grants. Three Rivers Properties, Mitten Brewery, I received a contact from the real estate broker for Three Rivers Property, that's the owner of the Mitten Brewery building. And we're working through the possibility that there might be some things that the village can do to resolve some land use issues that have been problematic for that site. And continuing to meet on that over the course of the next couple days and weeks, I would expect. Also, Fairway Residence Development, I've been in contact with as late as today with the owners of that property, trying to see if there's, again, a way that they can get that project back on track. So I don't know where that's going to go, but they reached out to the village, and I'm pursuing a response on behalf of the village. I just put down economic development as a project just because it's something that I've been thinking about. And the way that I like to approach that is I think it's one of the topics I think we want to discuss at our retreat is what kind of economic development you want to see, if any. It's something that I really need to get some direction from the council on. I think that's an important thing for the future. And then the final thing is, I've been looking at the possibility, I'm not all that happy with the way we do our agendas and collect items for presentation to you at the monthly meetings. I have a possible software solution that we use back in Calhoun County, where those things get automated, and you can you can actually contribute to that, to the agenda. It's on an interactive process where everyone is able to make comments, and then when it's all done, it gets packaged into a single document that you would look at rather than multiple documents in a Dropbox. And I think it'd be a much better use of the iPads, for example, once we had those. One of the solutions actually has a note-taking portion. There are actually 3 portions of the program. One is the back office work. We actually get the agenda together. The second is your board portal, where you actually access and attend the meeting on your iPad. You can even vote on the iPad, but take notes on your iPad while the meeting is occurring. Actually mark up the agenda as a PDF file, that kind of thing. So I'm pursuing that, see what we might be able to do as far as that goes. Zoning administration, like I said, 5 land use permits issued. If anybody wants any details on that, I can provide those. I'm still working on a sign permit review for Fingers Crossed. Under miscellaneous, a couple things that I haven't really, I didn't really mention and didn't list. There are 3 or 4 things. I did receive contact from MDOT regarding a possible jurisdictional transfer of M201 from M22 to County Road 640. It's about a mile and a half of roads, part of which is outside the village limits. The part approximately north of Peterson Park Road. It sounds like that's something they're really interested in.
Yeah, we've talked
We
about
know.
the infrastructure, yeah, they are definitely interested in
we
it,
know.
and it's, yeah. And it's
And
definitely on
talked
my
about
list of
that,
things that I wanna talk to you about, so
Okay.
that we can pursue that, but yeah, we have been looking at that.
And I've been in touch with Don Lund regarding a duplication of what she did for the Nutila sewer study for the water rates. And she has indicated a willingness to do that, and I expect to have an actual proposal for that work to be done for your consideration at the December meeting. Let's see, I was formally a member of the Suttons Bay Leelanau County Rotary Club as of today, and as of Monday, we're going to take possession of our house in Suttons Bay. We closed on it a couple weeks ago, and we own it, but we haven't been able to take possession of it yet from the former owners. We expect to do that on Monday. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'll be a taxpayer in 2 Leelanau townships for at least until the 20th of November. So that's my report.
What is village manager apparel about?
Oh, yes, I meant to mention my lovely
No.
village manager apparel that I purchased, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew that was purchased with personal funds, not village funds, but got a couple shirts and this nice lovely sweater that everybody has commented on. And I hope that I represent the village well.
Did Sally do the embroidery?
She did.
Yeah,
She
she
did.
does a great job
She
there.
did a very good job, and I was very pleased with her selection of colors and all of that. She did a very good job. Yes.
I just have a request, just because I personally, I think a lot of people want to know in the ZA reports in the future, if we could get the name of the applicant for the land use permits issued, names and the addresses, just so we know what's going on. When you say you issued 5 land use permits, I think all of us here kind of want to be up on things. We kind of want to know where those are.
If you'd like that, I actually.
And I don't want to have to go bother you for it individually.
I was going to do that, and I thought, well, that might not be something that you want, but if it's something you do want.
It's a matter of public record. I mean,
Yeah,
this
you're
stuff
right.
has to be
It
posted in
is.
the paper anyway,
It
so
is.
it's not private. It's not HIPAA. I mean, let's
What I could do would be to include the applicant, the address, and the type of permit.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Just have that.
That would be
Exactly
great. We would really appreciate that, I think.
That's what I'll prepare that and send that. Actually, I'll supplement the report with that.
Go ahead, Susan.
I have a question about number one. I would schedule those interviews. I'm not sure that you say pending possible redefinition of the job duty. I think the Employee Relations Committee basically decided that we were sort of flexible on this.
Yeah.
But that we wanted to get it going.
Yeah.
And, see who we have applying and what needs they have and whether we can meet their needs.
I really did want to get an idea of how things operated before committing to any interviews. I think I've got that under my belt now.
Okay.
Ready and able to do that. That's fine.
Good.
Okay, could we possibly nail down the date for the retreat tonight?
I'd like to.
Since everyone's here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cannot do it on the Wednesday because I have another board meeting, county away, but.
Yeah, for me, the 30th is the only date that works on that.
I can do any of them.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good with anything.
so 30th.
Shall we say the 30th then?
And it'll be at 1 p.m., right?
We'll confirm that with Chet Janik and then,
You,
So, one last thing now that we have a date for the retreat. I think that we probably need to add the kayak launch to the unfunded projects list so that either the planning commission, I would think the planning commission as opposed to infrastructure would probably want to score the project and add it to the master list of improvements that we're looking for funding for.
in all likelihood, this would not be something that we would pursue with village funding.
Which
It would just be
is
village
a bonus,
property.
but we're trying to consolidate everything in one master list, so we know how, if it may not be funded by village funds, but some of the work and the maintenance and getting it in and out has to be factored into the DPW schedule, so.
Absolutely.
I just want to say that many years ago, probably 30 years ago, I had multiple hand surgeries, and the Detroit Free Press was worried that I was going to lose the use of my hands, so they bought me what was then called Dragon, naturally speaking, and so for about 9 months, I dictated my columns, and it was, at the time, it was quite the adventure. I'm sure it's less adventuresome now than it was.
That's pretty much an adventure, but I'm not much of a typist, so I'm hoping that'll help a lot.
Good.
I knew somebody wrote 4 books using it a long time ago, before when the technology was terrible. And yeah, it worked. It works for some people.
Excellent.
Anything else for Jim?
Hey, Chris,
Yeah, Hugh?
I have a zoning question for Jim.
Yeah,
The new build on the corner of East 6th and Rose Street, do we have an overall height of what that's going to be?
Yeah,
Yeah,
There it is.
Yeah, I don't have it handy. I can't off the top of my head, but we do have that in the land use permit. And it complied with the zoning ordinance. I can say that with confidence.
I know it does too, because I asked for the copy of those plans and looked at it, and it is within the height, yeah.
Yeah, and
Just
the,
a sloping roof, it's.
yeah, and also the land coverage, it fits within the zoning ordinance because it looks really large. And this got started when Joni was reviewing the permits, and I know it now has had 2 zoning administrators.
Well, and the reason that it looks like, Joni did say this, I think, last meeting, but there's like a retaining wall that then has a porch, but it's not covered. Like, it's a gravel area, and so that doesn't fall within the land use parameters when it's not a permanent.
It's not a
Portion
structure.
of- yeah, it's not a
just on the
structure.
ground.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
not a deck, so like decks count, but it's not a
Right.
deck, so.
The definition of deck in your current ordinance is potentially problematic for counting on as part of the lot coverage and
It's a
sidewalk.
retaining wall, it's a wall.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna be a stone-faced wall.
But then inside of it has the gravel in the interior, like there's steps up from the driveway, I've looked at it. But yeah, and the gravel, but there's nothing covering it, so. But because that was poured, you know, you can't tell that's what it's gonna be yet. Like, you can't see that that's just gonna be gravel there. It looks like it could be something else in the
Sure.
future.
Yeah.
Like, it is misleading the way,
It
just
is.
because they poured that part, that
First.
retaining wall that's poured also. And when it's poured and the rest of it is foundation, it makes it kind of look like that's foundation.
Oh, I've driven by it many times.
Yeah.
Raised a few eyebrows.
Got what you need there, Hugh?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, we'll move through to our committee reports. Employee relations did not meet, so no report there.
But to make up for it, finance met twice.
That's right.
So you have both the October and the November minutes, and October is done. The November meeting was just yesterday, and we have 2 items that we're going to take action on, or recommend action be taken tonight, and that's indicated on the agenda. And I think the other items Jim covered in his manager's report. So unless there are questions.
Okay. Infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff is in the DPW report, so there's not a lot that's additional. Some things that we're still working on is the electric car chargers. Will was able to get us some information that converting them could be more costly than it's worth, and so we're pursuing confirming how much a year's worth of the electric is, and then potentially having multiple businesses work to sponsor it and putting up a sign. Northport Energy is also willing to help us with that some too, and obviously they could be included in the sign. So we're working on continuing to follow up on that so that we can be capturing those funds elsewhere. And honestly, everything else has been covered, because the water rate stuff has been touched on, you know, and DPW, you know, that stuff. The mill pond, we're still waiting for a response, right? We don't have anything on that, so
Absolutely.
until we have that update, we really need to, I mean, all of us on the committee kind of are consensus that we need to wait until we find out what Eagle says back before we do too much more discussion on any of it, because we need to know what that answer is first.
It's only been since April.
Yep, only since April, so, and she definitely has it, so.
And what are the questions that we've posed to her?
It's not questions that we've posed, it's the response to the violations, and
Okay.
then with the report, but also with the steps that need to be done to be able to put it back to the way it needs to be.
And we described her what we've done, and we're waiting for her thumbs up, basically.
Correct, for her to say that he can do those
Okay.
minor
Got it.
repairs, so that then we can go from there,
But now we're into, you know, colder weather and.
where he may not be
Right.
able to do them.
Right.
So,
So,
but they haven't been messing with it since, I mean, it's
No.
still just waiting, so, and all the heavy rains, it has not,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, there's been many, many heavy rains, they've been
Mhm.
keeping a very
Yeah.
close eye on it, and it has not had issues, which is good.
Did you mean Leland Energy instead of Northport?
Yeah.
Yes, that is, I
Yeah,
apologize,
sorry.
thank you, yep, thank you, sorry.
Any other questions for Laura? Waterfront. Hugh, do you have anything from home base there, or?
Nope, we did not meet, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Got it. And Parks and Trails didn't meet either, so light committee meeting month. Planning Commission,
The planning commission minutes are included in the packet, and if I read my email correctly, the planning commission will be conducting a public information session next Wednesday. We originally had said from 5 until 6, but I think that we're looking at 6 to 7. Is that, Jim, is that what Gretchen decided on, is that we'll do the public open house information section, a session about the zoning amendments from 6 to 7, and then followed by the planning commission meeting?
That's correct. And we will do it here rather than,
Yeah,
we were considering the golf course, but
Right.
we just thought logistically it was.
so we'll open with that. We'll have a representative from Wade Trim here, and the idea is to have some display boards so that there can be some one-on-one dialogue. We encourage all of the trustees to attend.
That's next
And that's
Wednesday.
next Wednesday. And then the planning commission to follow will be almost entirely devoted to discussion of the 7th Street options. So I know that there's a lot of public interest and want to make sure that people who don't look at the website have another means of knowing about it.
And those for 7th Street, the evaluations and the public comment addendum is all in the Dropbox folder, right?
Yeah, already, it's been in Dropbox for
Yep.
a week.
Right, I
So-
just want the public to know that it's
Yep.
there.
Can
So
I get time and
So-
date on that again?
Wednesday, the 15th at 5 PM.
No, 6.
Oh, 6.
6, yeah, we had originally said 5, but it's
Okay,
moved to
it does
6.
say 6 on the village website, I'm pretty sure, because I checked today.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or, I mean,
Six.
5,
Oh, it
Oh,
says
so
5.
should it be fixed?
double check, because I was
Okay.
trying to remember what time I needed to be there to unlock the door. But,
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it should be on the home page, but maybe on the calendar it got switched. So
Okay.
I will double check.
So it is at 5,
It
It's
is
at
at
6.
6,
6. Okay.
yes.
And there is a publication on the homepage, and the 7th Street evaluations are in the 7th Street Dropbox, and they're labeled in folders, in a folder.
Yeah, the publication that's posted on the website is really great. I thought it was well written and got all the info. It's awesome.
Thanks, so
Yeah.
that was okay.
Well,
Maybe somewhere else it says 5 o'clock, but I will,
yeah, somewhere
I
I
will-
saw 5
I will
o'clock.
track back
When Cindy
and
first
double
put
check.
it on the calendar, that's what we had.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that my minutes had the original plan, and so I wanted to make sure that that was.
So 6 o'clock,
here.
opening day deer season.
Yep, we knew that. We tried to find another date. There were so
It's-
many
it's
conflicts.
moved to
It's
6
all right.
o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock to
6
start,
o'clock
you're not
to
sure.
start,
It's
yeah.
a big deal down where I come from.
Okay, it's.
And it's our regular meeting day too, so I mean,
Yeah. Kids on school. Okay, anything else for Jane? Okay, NLTUA, we did have our annual meeting last month, October 17th, where we elected new officers. So the new chairman is Supervisor Mike McMillan. Myself as vice chair. Will Harper has been selected as the secretary and also is serving as a temporary treasurer until we can appoint a 5th member of the NLTUA board. That has to come from the township. The big thing at last month's meeting, there's 2 things. One was we had an update on the determination of the connection fees for the potential Fairway View project. And it sounds like there's action that needs to be taken by all 3 bodies, the village, the township, and the NLTOA to make any adjustments to that. But the adjustments will not be or cannot be very big. So there's no giving the farm away on connection fees. The other information we heard from Dawn Lund of Utility Financial Solutions, we had our rate study done, and she presented us with a couple different options in terms of how we would fund our capital projects and our O&M through the rate study. And it was a really great presentation. I mean, we learned a lot, and it's with up-to-date information of where our capital projects are with the sewer to date, not from 5 years ago when the last one was done. So we'll be hearing back from her because I think we want to have a little work session with her to make some adjustments.
Yeah, I haven't seen the final report yet.
Yeah.
But we did, you don't want to forget that the NLTUA did recommend and to the village council and the township, and basically what came out of the rate study is the NLTUA is going to recommend to both boards a 7% rate increase for the next 3 years, 7%. In the next fiscal year, the one after, and the one after that. And then we'll be right around 2028. And then things will probably level out. But the debt service payment that people are paying now will not disappear off their bills. It'll be converted to O&M going forward. There's not going to be, some people were, and this is important that people know, that weren't at the NLTUA meeting, that in 2028, your sewer bills are not going to go down. They will level off for the foreseeable future, maybe, for several years. But that once that debt service payment comes off your green card, it's not you're not going to get that money back, or you're not going to get it reduced.
Correct.
In the future. So in order to keep the thing functioning, that payment has to be converted to an actual service fee instead of a debt service fee. It goes into operations and maintenance. That's the only way they're going to keep the toilets flushing. So that's the good and the bad news on that. Go ahead.
Just a small correction, we are looking, it was proposed at 7, but we're looking more like an 8%. I just.
Yeah, this wasn't her final report. She was going to
I
have.
did just receive her
Yes,
final
you
report,
got it?
and
I
I
haven't
will
seen
send
it
that
yet.
out to the board members before it's made public. So.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
That meeting's in 2 weeks.
I got the invoice, but I didn't get the report. I
You
need to point
did.
at
I
that.
didn't know, but I will get that out, we're preparing for our meeting coming up this month, so I'll send that out tomorrow, Friday.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to our discussion and potential action items. The first one up is the short-term rental task force appointments.
And can I interject? I failed to mention, it is in the planning commission minutes, but the planning commission recommends that President McCann appoint Kathy Wessel as the planning commission representative.
All right,
Can
so.
we do that tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have 3 names for appointment here, so.
Oh, okay.
My first appointment would be the recommendation of Kathy Wessel. The second would be Sherry Edwards as a short-term rental owner. And the third would be Teresa Sletter as a long-term rental owner. The one demographic I did not hear back from was a business owner. I don't think that means the task force can't start with an initial meeting, and if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to reach out to some business owners. There's a couple that I'd like to discuss, but we wanted to have individuals not overlap, and so that's the finding a business owner who maybe doesn't have a short-term rental or isn't a planning commission member or a village council member.
Yeah,
So,
I can think of one.
okay. But that fills 5 of the 6 seats for the task force that we came up with. So those will be the members, in addition to Susan and Mike Stoffel, who were appointed at last month's meeting.
Did we approve those, or did you just?
I guess I just made the appointment. Do we need to approve them by
No.
vote or consensus, or they're just presidential appointments?
Because it's ad hoc, isn't it, just you?
Okay.
Just ask if there's any objection.
Yeah. Any objections to those 3?
No.
And
But have we decided what the remit is for this team of?
Yeah, well, we did discuss it at last month's meeting.
We had there was a sheet that we approved, I think it was before you stepped onto the board, with a sheet that we approved with goals.
there was also a discussion at the planning commission when we were clarifying what our representative would be charged with doing, that the first order of business for the task force is to clearly establish what they will hope to accomplish and bring that to the council, so that their charge is clear. Is that fair enough?
Yes, and I understand you also want me to participate.
Yes,
Yeah.
In that committee.
as the zoning administrator.
I thought that maybe we charge them to do something,
Well,
as it's a task force.
Well, the document that we sort of approved that document, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, and it outlined sort of the things that we want that,
What they're going to be
what they're going to be doing, I mean, and I spoke with Jim
I
about
can
it.
send that
We
to
want
you.
to identify what the issues are, if there are any, and then how do we react to those.
I think before we ask them to bring us an ordinance, we need to identify whether we have a problem and what the solutions might be.
So they're going to be having support and understanding whether we have a problem? They're not supposed to do their own research.
They will be supported primarily through the zoning administrator. But yes, they will be, if they need additional resources, they will come to us. But yes, they have to identify what the issue is before we have to know if we have a problem before we develop a solution.
Okay.
What is your concern?
Well, it's just kind of nebulous. That's my concern. It's not very specific what they're supposed to be looking at to discern if they have a problem, for one thing. How do they decide if they have a problem?
Yeah, that's, again, that way I thought we'd had mentioned that in the last meeting. The document that Susan laid out talked about, gathering information, and again, I don't have it right in front of me, but it sort of outlines what we would like them to do, and having, one, the support of our zoning administrator, two, Kathy Russell has immense knowledge of the short-term rental ordinance and that type of stuff. So I'm certainly hoping that she can help as the planning commissioner who's, worked on this and studied it to give the task force some guidance.
I could kind of put a little bit of a bow around that. I've heard a number of things that people express as problems with respect to short-term rentals. I think what we want to do is try to get a consensus on what those problems, first of all, what are people saying the problems are, and then a consensus is this really a problem in Northport? For example, I can tell you that a very significant, I think I've mentioned before, I represented the city of South Haven when their short-term rental ordinance was attacked as unconstitutional upwards of 10 years ago, as I recall. So they've been involved in that for a long, long time. Their issue was really one of nuisance. That they were developed, that they were becoming a nuisance in neighborhoods for long-term residents, where there were also short-term rentals. That was their issue. I'm not hearing that that's so much of an issue in Northport, although when I'm saying I'm not hearing that overwhelmingly. I am hearing comments about that, though. So I think you need to get we need to get an idea of what it is, what problem it is that we're trying to solve.
Mhm.
I think what most people, if I can speak on this for a second, I think what most people are concerned of is the effects it's having on the overall housing market in terms of we're getting Airbnb creep away from what was traditionally waterfront shoreline would be short term. It's now going up into what would be normally starter homes on like Ransom Street, for example, or up, on West 4th and 5th, places where traditionally have been 1 or 2 bedroom bungalows that nobody would think of turning into a short-term rental before VRBO came around. And now that's creeping into the neighborhoods and it's pushing up property values, which is great for some people, but it's really making it hard to either buy or rent long-term because the market's getting distorted. I think that is the number one thing that people want us to address in terms of short-term rentals. We don't have, to the best of my knowledge, much of a nuisance issue in the village. They had some out, Cherry Homeway, they had some crazy party houses, but we don't, a little bit, but
Yeah, there's a little bit, but it's not that much.
But it's not bad.
No,
I mean,
that's
it's
not the
not bad.
prevailing
But
issue.
it's important to look at the numbers and decide, do we want, say, 30% of our housing in the village to be short-term rental?
Well, that's the market, and that's how it affects.
What kind of numbers do we want? Even if people aren't complaining, do we want that? It's as you say, you called it creep, and I think the creep is what we're concerned about. We don't want it to creep so much so that suddenly.
I think it's not just that too, but it's also identifying what are options for correcting that or dealing with that, because from Kathy's reports that she's given to planning for the past 2 years, There's a lot of communities who have that same concern, who have put caps or done this or made the fees extraordinarily high or things like that. And, you know, what she's reported in most of those cases is that that wasn't very successful and that they've been undoing those options. So it's not just identifying, but it's
Right.
looking at then what are the options
Exactly.
for correction and are there any that could possibly work and find success? Because just, you know, deciding on something isn't necessarily the way that's gonna, you know, traditionally you might think that capping it works, but what most communities that I'm aware of, that is not working. So I
Yeah,
think that's
it's a-
part of it too, is trying to evaluate what solutions could be integrated to Northport.
This is a huge problem in ski towns, and I spent a lot of time in Colorado, and I have friends in Aspen and stuff, and what they're doing that is working that I've heard of, and I don't know, but I'd like to find out, that it's 100% a zoning solution. It is not, hasn't had anything to do with any of the approaches that I've seen taken around here. And I've been saying this for a long time, that overlay zoning, and I don't know if it's legal, and I'd like to talk to you about it, but I don't want to serve on this task force. But I will work on it with you if you want.
I would be happy to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
one of
It
the
does work out west.
overlay zoning is often a very good solution to a problem like this.
Yeah.
I used an overlay zone to solve an economic development issue with the expansion of our hospital in the city of Marshall, and it worked very well.
I see it as a very simple solution to what's going on in Northport, and we've been wringing our hands about this for years, and we just haven't gotten any traction on it. I kind of wanted to incorporate it into our new zoning ordinance that we're gonna adopt here in the next
Well,
3 to
and
4 months.
for those that don't know what an overlay, or if there's public that doesn't, an overlay is just you draw a district on top of districts, the existing districts stay in place, but the overlay district has additional restrictions that anything that falls in that. So therefore, it could be drawn over R2,
Right.
or there's proposed a new R2 district that's a shoreline, and it also could overlay with R1. I mean, like it can go on top of other districts. I mean, to me, it's definitely all stuff the task force can look at and talk about, because I think the biggest issue with that is where do you overlay if that's what you're doing.
To clarify, overlay districts don't have just additional restrictions, they also have additional permissions.
Right.
And sometimes that is, you know, it's again, one of the other things that I've heard is the problem is not so much of short-term rental creep, but the fact that it impacts workforce and affordable housing. And I tend to like to use the word workforce housing rather than affordable housing. Because frankly, when you get into affordable housing in a community that has a median income, or a county that has a median income of like $90,000, affordable housing by definition is quite expensive, because affordable is based upon the average the median income in the area. So when you have a high median income, affordable housing is quite high. And when you have a house on a small 2-bedroom house in Northport selling for $300,000, you're gonna have a hard time telling people that you should only get $200,000 for your house, because we think it should be a starter home for somebody. And you're gonna get a lot of pushback on that. And in South Haven, that's exactly what we got. The pushback we got was from property owners and real estate brokers.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
They were the ones that were pushing back the hardest. And the solutions that we ended up with were zoning solutions. They were density and occupancy solutions.
So I was
Chris,
just
yeah,
gonna add,
yeah.
just kind of the nuts and bolts as a street administrator. The thing I hear and observe, because we're all up and down the streets, is parking. Parking becomes a major issue. We have one particular, across from our DPW that ends up with 9 to 10 cars, and they don't have adequate parking. So I think that's something else that's going to be considered.
Yeah, Sutton's Bay is revisiting their STR ordinance, and it's all dealing with parking, bonfires, noise ordinance, and that kind of stuff, which are just.
I don't think that's a problem.
No.
Other than,
Well,
It's not a problem except
personally
for a
for
few
me,
instances, but,
it
if we have nothing, then everything is okay. If we
Yeah,
have
and
something,
right now we
then
have
it's manageable,
nothing.
and I think that's what we need to do, is how do we manage these if they're here? they're not going
All
anywhere.
right, well, let's not do all the work of the
Yeah.
task force tonight, so.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
The
But I
focus
think
drops.
one thing you should do, just for the record, make it really clear who that task force, because I think you've got everybody that you're gonna have, and then if you would, I'll set up the first meeting of that task force.
Okay.
But if we can, for the record and the people that are in the audience, let's identify all those people that are on the task force.
Yeah, so the people on the task force are gonna be Susan Ager, Mike Stoffel, Kathy Wessel, Teresa Slutter, Sherry Edwards, and our zoning administrator, Jim Dyer.
And then potentially a
And
business owner,
potentially a business owner, if I can get someone to
volunteer.
bend the knee. Okay.
I'll set that meeting up.
Okay, our next discussion, potential action item is consideration of mid-year budget amendments, and those have been included in the packet.
So they, the finance committee discussed this yesterday, and for the members of the public who are watching on Zoom, for the last 4 months or so, the clerk has included in her report a list of proposed budget amendments. And so we've been tracking these through the finance committee and sharing them with the full council so that there wouldn't be any surprises. We made a few minor tweaks, some of them good because our revenues exceeded expectation, but there are proposed amendments to the general fund, major streets, the fireworks fund, the water fund, the capital fund, the marina fund, and the vehicle and equipment fund, all of which allowed us to maintain some contingency funds in the budget for this year. And the finance committee moves to approve the budget amendments provided by the secretary.
You mean you do?
Yes, on behalf of the finance committee.
Okay. I have a couple questions, just,
Wait, can we second that?
oh,
before we
I'll
discuss?
support it.
Okay,
Sure.
moved by Jane and supported by Will. Discussion.
There's some weird numbering going on towards the bottom. It says marina fund, it says 8 marina bond payments, and then vehicle equipment fund that starts with 2. Is that
I
because they were
couldn't get it
taken
to
out of?
correct. I couldn't get it to.
I know, I've had that problem, but okay,
Yeah.
just so that's not an
Just-
issue. So, just to be clear, I mean, I like this, but have I not been paying attention? This is a little bit different methodology than we've been using. This is new.
We haven't been as open about it.
Yeah,
And so one of the things that is on the finance committee agenda every month is a review of potential budget amendments.
right. So was this suggested by Mr. Dyer?
No, this is
No,
something
but
we
He
started.
would have suggested
Yeah.
it if
Okay.
not.
No,
Well, I like it a lot, and,
Yeah.
and I think it's a great new way of doing it, and it's much more clear to everyone, so congratulations on that, and,
Do we know what the total is, or the total?
well, there isn't a
increase
total,
in spending?
because you're just moving stuff from one fund to another.
Yeah,
It's just by fund.
You're shifting things around, so there is no total.
right, it's a sum zero. You're moving from one line to another.
Okay.
It's just doing it now so that we don't have as big a list when we get to the end,
Yeah,
which is
we'll
how
go
it's
down.
previously been.
And to comply with the Uniform Municipal Budgeting Act, you need to approve budget amendments when you're over, when at a budget, or when you're changing a budget by, well, you actually
By
should.
department.
Yeah, you should establish a threshold. Budget's changed by a certain dollar amount or percentage amount. Because if you're not in compliance with the Uniform Municipal Budgeting Act, you don't do that. So this is a much better process for doing so.
But there isn't a change in the budget by a significant amount, right? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
With
You're
the
just moving
over-
things at
the
the same
overall
budget?
bottom line, yes, there's very little impact on, if you lump together all of the assets of the village, there's very little change. This is just making sure that where we had budgeted for equipment in the general fund for the manager, that we exceeded the cost by buying a new computer, so we moved funds from elsewhere in the general fund to cover the purchase of a computer.
Where it had not been spent.
Yeah, where we hadn't spent the money.
We have a contingency and we've been talking about that in our finance meeting, but we, what I can do is print out a revenue expenditure report, which will give you a real good capture. It shows the total budget for the year and where we're at year to date, but you are correct. Where we are at is not exceeding at this time, it's moving funds to capture these expenses.
Yeah, just as an example, we kept an interim village manager here longer than we initially planned. So we are adding $25,000 for the interim manager services. During that time, we weren't paying a liaison that we had budgeted for. And we were not paying for health insurance because under the contract for the interim manager, we weren't paying benefits. So those funds fill in the $25,000.
The street light was paid for by insurance, things of that nature, revenues.
And I've just recently now have access to all of our computerized fund balance accounting software. I'm familiarizing myself with the reports that are available and trying to compare some of the practices that we use down in Johnson County, for example, which has very, very good financial controls. Compare some of those and implement some of those so you can see them and do that, have those kind of reports as well.
So there's a question on the table, so.
Any other discussion? No? Okay, so roll call vote, starting with Will.
Yes.
Barb.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Jane.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
And yes. Motion passes. Next item is consideration of the budget year amendment ordinance. This is in the packet. We did discuss this at finance yesterday.
I'll move to adopt village ordinance number, it looks like 138, which is basically to begin the process of changing the fiscal year
Correct.
for the village of Northport.
Second.
All right, moved by Will, supported by Susan, to approve village ordinance 138. Any discussion?
So basically, this means we're gonna have to start doing micro budgeting until we get caught up.
We'll do a 4-month budget from, what would it be?
March 1, June
April,
30th.
March, April, May, and June. And then we'll do a full budget for July.
Oh, so we only have to do it once.
We only do it once.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Mhm.
Okay, good. This won't be that painful.
And I just think July fiscal, or July to June fiscal year makes a whole lot more sense for us
Yep.
as our community.
Chet made that very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we have all of our tax revenue
Right.
pretty much accounted
Yeah.
for. So for planning definitely makes sense.
Okay, ordinances need a roll call vote?
We should be fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so, again, it was moved by Will, supported by Susan to adopt village ordinance 138. So starting with Susan,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes. All right, and last up, we have a resolution for law enforcement grants. This was tabled from the October meeting. Have it here in our packet again.
Technically, I don't think it was tabled, it was defeated.
Oh,
Yeah.
But with the, I think with the intent to bring it back if there was a reason to do so.
Mhm.
I was just reading the.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that.
That's okay.
That way in the agenda, but I added it on because there's some additional information that I didn't have at the time, was considered at the October meeting. The way the secondary road patrol grant works, I thought this was the case, but I didn't know, so I really didn't want to say at the last month meeting. I confirmed with one of my former sheriffs in Calhoun County is now the executive director of the Michigan Sheriff's Association. He confirmed for me, secondary road patrol grant is distributed to the county on basically the same formula as Act 51, based upon your population and your road miles. So the county is going to get this grant regardless of whether we approve this resolution or not. They're going to get the same amount regardless of whether we approve this resolution. The only difference is if we, and the reason they're asking for us to support the resolution is if we do so, then the sheriff is permitted to exercise or use those road patrol funds in the village of Northport. Otherwise, he wouldn't be permitted to do so. So I've added it on to give you the opportunity to reconsider that previous vote. But again, you choose not to. There's no real reason. It's not going to change anything with respect to the road patrol grant received by the sheriff.
They're still gonna get the money, they just can't use the money to
You will not
fund
be
the
able to
road
use the
patrol
money.
in our
And
township.
to be honest,
In our village.
not in the village.
Oh, village.
In the village.
Yeah.
Or
But the township voted on it.
or frankly, any place that didn't approve such a resolution. And I didn't have that information. Like I said, I thought that might be how it worked, but I didn't have that information. Couldn't provide that to you at the last meeting. So if you'd like to reconsider, that's the reason I placed it back on the agenda.
Point of order, I believe that in order to reconsider, someone who voted for the motion needs to bring it up again, and we don't have any, do we have anybody here who voted for it?
That was Hugh.
Yeah, nobody did.
That was somebody who voted it down.
No.
No, somebody who voted for it
Oh,
Needs
yes, you
moved
are
to
correct.
reconsider,
And Hugh Cook was the only one.
yeah, and he's,
Yeah.
can't do that.
Can he?
No.
You
No,
can't,
not
no.
from Zoom.
No,
I mean, clearly he can vote for it or against it, but couldn't he?
no, you
No,
can't
he
take
can't
any
do
official
anything
action
since he's not
using
here.
it. No.
And
Well, I'm not so sure because you're not really reconsidering. You're considering it. You've already rejected it. A reconsideration motion generally is a motion that occurs during the meeting where action is taken,
Or
not
the
in
meeting
a later
after,
meeting.
or the meeting after. Which, otherwise you can't do anything. And personally, I couldn't be here last time, but I think it was, we probably should have accepted it, in my view.
Well, and I think that some of us, myself in particular, and I shouldn't speak for others, thought that we were buying time to have Jim talk with some experts to see what our options were, rather than voting in favor of it, or, rather than voting to approve it before we had answers to questions.
There's nothing to stop Hugh from taking it up into December though, so.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what's the big deal?
Is there's no time sensitivity to this?
Apparently not. We don't really have
Our
patrols on
police
secondary
are-
roads in the village. Do we want somebody up there on Third Street, by the golf course? They don't even patrol, I mean, they have one speed stop, in town anyway, so I don't really think it makes any difference. It doesn't affect,
Well, I mean, if we need Hugh to be here to do it, I'm sure Hugh would be happy to do it next meeting.
I'm sure he will, and maybe we can.
Very much so.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
get him to, Chris has been asking them to do a speed trap down by the depot forever, and they refuse to do it, so I don't see the big deal either way.
Jim looks like he's looking something up.
Chris, if you want to table it, and I would do something in December then,
We've
because I
actually
feel it is important to
only a
support the
member
sheriff's department.
prevailing side in the initial decision may move to reconsider.
Okay,
And actually, somebody that
voted
voted
no.
Right.
no,
Yeah.
that can move to
Yeah,
reconsider.
all right.
Prevail.
I thought that was the case. I didn't want to.
I'm glad you looked it up. because
I
I
don't want to
thought-
say that, but that is the case. If you're strictly applying Robert's Rules of Order. So it's the prevailing side that can reconsider.
I move that we reconsider resolution number 6-2023 and vote to approve it.
He was trying to talk here.
Oh.
You can barely hear him. Ask him to repeat, please.
Hello? You?
Yeah, I was just wanting to express my thoughts. As fact is, I would like to see us support the sheriff's department. So
We like to support the sheriff's department, Eric.
Right.
And I will support Susan's motion to reconsider
Okay, we've
the
got
resolution.
moved by Susan and supported by Jane to reconsider resolution number 6-23
And vote to approve.
and vote to approve it. Any discussion further? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. Roll call vote, starting with Will.
No,
Barb,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes.
I'll communicate that decision to the sheriff. I think that might make it a little a discussion that I want to have with the department regarding enforcement generally of ordinances in the village. I hope that'll make it a little bit easier.
Oh, good, little sugar. Okay, that brings us to number 10, payment of the bills. Bill sheet is in the packet. Everybody have a chance to review it. Under 100,000, that's a good thing. We got the iPads.
Kent, or that's not Kent, that's Chris.
here, let me make a motion so we can have discussion.
Oh, okay.
I move we pay the bills when funds are available in the amount of $91,775.31.
Second.
All right, moved by Will, supported by Barb to pay the bills in the amount of $91,775.31. Discussion?
Chris, just a question that, Kent Colton, $178 for the weather tower, is that the equipment that we talked about last month?
Yes.
And that's all it took, or is it
That's
just part of
just the wiring and the new outlets, new sockets for the lights. And then we still have the biggest cost is going to be getting a man lift to get up there.
Oh, right, you're right, okay, thanks.
But I think we got that covered.
Slide ins were installed?
Yep, they're installed.
Great.
And there's extra, right?
One extra.
Awesome.
And it was under the amount.
Good, even better.
The plow was under too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The new plow blade.
So I'm talking, but we did it.
Okay. Any other discussion on the bills?
The only question I have is, we have talked about it before, but when we approve the bills, I mean, everything has already been paid, correct?
Right.
And it's paid ahead of time, and we're doing it as just a formality, I guess. And we had talked about if that's how we wanted it to continue, or if there were other options. And we don't have to decide it now at all, and I don't want to talk about it now, but I just wanted to bring it up again, that I would like to still pursue that discussion now that we have a village manager in place, and we can establish if that needs to belong in the rules and procedure. Where would the explanation of how that's happening? Because our village currently, that's what's in practice and has been
Purchase policy.
Yeah, and is that what we want it to continue to be, and can we clarify it more so that that's clear to everyone?
I can tell you what we do in Calhoun County. We have our policy, we do the same thing that you do, but for any check over a certain, I can't recall off the top of my head, I think it's any check over $20,000, which is our administrative purchasing power. So maybe in our case, it would be anything over 2,000 or 2,500, whatever the administrative power.
I think it's 3,000, but isn't it?
Oh, we split it,
Oh,
2,500,
yes.
but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What we do is we should approve them in the same way, but all checks are held until the approval occurs, and then they're sent out. If they're over that
amount.
limit, if they're under the limit, they're sent out immediately.
Yeah.
They're sent out
Hopefully.
immediately because you've
With the
already.
exception of utilities
I was
and all
just gonna
things like that,
say,
because
yeah,
that
would be.
There's no reason to hold checks that are utilities, even if they're over that
But-
amount.
Yeah, and that's something that you would define in the.
Right,
define in the
yeah,
Policy for that purpose.
Which is,
But, and I think that would be the way that I'd be most comfortable with doing it. That way it gives you the opportunity to pull something from I hope unlikely event, but in the event that you do want to pull something off of paid bills report, you could do that and the check would not yet have gone out.
Oh, it's happened. This definitely happened.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one reason the purchasing policy is under
Right.
review and
No, so
revision.
can we, can we make a note to put this on, December agenda to change to the system that,
so.
Jim
Well,
is-
or have it as a discussion item where we can look at a draft maybe.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Just get it on the agenda, because it's never made it to an agenda other than like,
Well, I
These-
think
these
now it
same
makes sense
conversations
though,
we
because
keep
now
having.
we have
Yeah.
a new manager in place
Yeah.
that can
well, it
put the
knows
policy in.
this stuff.
Yeah, correct, exactly, so. But I definitely, I mean, it's my opinion that we should leave utilities and like professional
Yeah.
fees out, but I think capital things, even if it's professional, if it's a capital improvement, I would want that held.
Even professional fees, because that was the most contentious in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those checks that went out, I was so pissed off about.
Okay, so motion on the table to approve the bills in the amount of $91,775.30 was made by Will and supported by Barb. Roll call vote starting with Susan.
Yes.
Jane,
Yes,
Laura,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes,
Will,
Yes.
and yes. The bills are paid. That brings us to our second public comment. If anybody in public would like to make a comment, you can unmute yourself. Or, I see one hand is up right now. I've got Kay.
Yep. Hi there. Good evening.
Hello.
This is Kay Penzine, 105 West 3rd Street. Just asking for clarification where next Wednesday's meeting is going to be held.
at the village office. Here.
Here.
Okay, from 6 to 7, right?
The public discussion on zoning is from 6 to 7, but then the regular planning commission meeting will commence at 7, which is going to be discussing the 7th Street property.
I see. Okay. And then I had one more question for President McCann. I submitted an email about the task force and never got a response. Just wondered what I might have done incorrectly to not get a response.
Probably nothing.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Any council comment?
I just wanted to thank all the volunteers that are willing to work on the task force for volunteering.
Oh, thank everybody for helping out with Halloween.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
thank you for Halloween.
A lot of fun.
yeah, I would just like to hope that we can get the meeting packets a little sooner than the day of the meeting in future. If possible.
Yeah, it's a little different this week. We were kind of waiting for the email and I was like, before I go, like, where's my agenda? I went and looked in the Dropbox and lo and behold, there it was. So that might be on us from now on, so.
Under the Dropbox till today.
Okay,
So
it was
I
in the Dropbox yesterday.
with,
The agenda, but not the other.
Oh, not everything, you're right, yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
with Cindy's illness, that leaves Joni pretty short-handed.
Yeah, I get it.
That's my job. And it's my job to fix that very thing that Dr. Conley mentions.
Any other council comments?
Just, if I can just stab, this is something I didn't have in the report, is that the wind turbine has been fully cleaned up.
Oh, good.
Great.
So, site's restored to best it can be. The tower still stands and, they'll have to decide what they're gonna do next. So, the damaged portions are gone.
Good to know. Okay. Any other comments? All right, come to our adjournment portion. Someone would like to make a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.
Can we make the second period?
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
I know, this
It
is
was
like the shortest.
7:30.
Second period of what, Lynn?
Hockey game.